Hello, it is Michael Linson of Smart Classroom Management, and these are the only classroom consequences you're ever going to need. Before we talk about them, it's important to mention that these consequences are meant for grades K through seventh grade. So here at Smart Classroom Management, we have two classroom management plans, one that runs from kindergarten through seventh grade, and the other one begins at eighth grade and runs through high school. There are some conditions where you may use the high school plan as young as seventh grade, even sometimes sixth grade, mostly not. But if you go to the website, in the Smart Classroom Management website, in the sidebar at the bottom, you'll see the two plans. And if you read about them, you can see which one is right for you. But generally, the plan we're going to talk about today, the consequences we're going to talk about today, are for kindergarten through seventh grade. Okay, that is we call that the elementary plan, and then the high school plan comes after that. They're very different plans. The high school plan, by the way, is life changing for many teachers. It's absolutely incredible and powerful. This one is powerful too, but at first glance, it doesn't seem that way because the consequences are very basic and very common, and when you look at them, when you see them, you might think to yourself, well, they don't seem very punitive. But that's not the idea, and we're going to go over that in a minute. We're going to make these consequences, what we do at Smart Classroom Management is we make these consequences matter to students, and we also we fulfill them, we teach them, we enforce them in such a way that students are compelled to reflect on their misbehavior and choose of their own accord not to continue to misbehave in class. And again, we're going to talk about that in a minute. But first, the first consequence, we believe strongly in giving students a warning. And a warning isn't a necessarily, it isn't a consequence per se. It's more like a courtesy that you give your students because we want them to fix it on their own. So warning gives them a chance to fix their misbehavior on their own, to refrain from breaking another classroom rule for the day. And when they're successful in doing that, they gain in responsibility, they gain in maturity, and they gain in their own personal discipline to keep from misbehaving in the future. So warnings are good things. And again, we explain it to students that it is a courtesy, that they take care of it on their own. And if they can't, then they need a real consequence, which we believe in a timeout, a more lengthy timeout than perhaps you're used to. We believe in more of a 12 to 15 minute timeout. Students need that much time to really think about their misbehavior, even for younger students. The good news is that at Smart Classroom Management, we want to change behavior. You know, we're in it to really change behavior. And so students spend a lot less time in timeout throughout the course of the year by having longer timeouts than having these short sort of 3-5 minute sort of timeouts that are pretty popular. You don't have to call it timeout. You can call it reflection, the reflection zone, or you can call it observation mode. These are two kind of more popular alternatives to using the language timeout. Both are perfectly fine. We'll talk more in the future about real specifics about timeout, where to put it in your classroom, and how students are to go to timeout, and all those sorts of things. are things that we will cover in the future. Right now, as part of our series on the real sort of overview basics of real effective classroom management. That's the spirit in which we're doing this particular video. We believe if a student misbehaves or breaks a third rule, it doesn't matter which rule they break. By the way, if you haven't watched that video, the previous video was called The Only Classroom Rules you ever need, please check out that video. But if a student breaks 3 of those rules, again, doesn't matter which ones, in a day, that parents have a right to know. And it is, again, consequence in name only. We are allowing parents, they're partners in this. And so in the beginning of the school year, as part of your packet you send home to parents and part of back to school night, you'll let them know exactly when and how you'll be contacting them if their student, again, breaks 3 rules in a single day. And so they will be contacted. There's different ways of doing that. A note home can be particularly powerful. We'll talk about that in a future video, but also you can send an email or a message home. We want to just give the facts. You can call also, but we believe in giving the facts that this is what happened. The parent has the syllabus, they have the rules with them, and we've sent them home. And so the parents can see where that is and what that means, all those sorts of things. And again, we'll go into depth in future videos on that. The +2 means that on the third consequence, the student cycles back into timeout because we want more reflection. And so the parent will be contacted on that third consequence, but the student will also go back to timeout. If the rare occurrence happens and it happens again, they continue to cycle back into timeout. So you always have a consequence. You always have something that you can do as a teacher to follow through and improve behavior. The little asterisk here, it says teacher's right. And what this means is that if a particular behavior is especially egregious, like blatant disrespect, something like that, then you have every right to skip that warning stage if you feel that student really needs to get away from their classmates and to think about the misbehavior. Now, what they will think about is something that we don't tell them. So it's really important that we don't pull students aside. And again, this is a video for another time, but we don't pull students aside and tell them what to think or how to feel or anything like that. We want them to come to conclusions on their own, because when they come to conclusions on their own, when they make decisions of their own accord, it sticks and it changes behavior. And it changes behavior for real, for long-term sort of change in behavior. So that's what we're getting at. So the question is, well, how can such basic and simple consequences that aren't particularly punitive, how can they make that sort of effect when my students don't care, they tell me they don't care, and their parents don't care, and all this kind of thing? And we hear that a lot from our students in this day and age. And here's the thing. So it's true. There's no magic in these particular consequences. In fact, they're very, very basic. But we want to do, and what's a really big part of smart classroom management and effective classroom management in general, is that we want to create leverage. We want to create leverage. Another way to say that is we want these consequences to have meaning for students. We want them to matter. We want them to matter so much that even a warning affects them. Even a warning has an internal reaction and an intrinsic starting up, sort of an intrinsic, sort of a turning the key over in those intrinsic motivational engines to do the right thing in class. And we do that. And each of these topics, by the way, we're going to cover in future videos. But together, they create that leverage and give your consequences meaning. And I don't care where you work or what neighborhood or grade level or anything, or how tough your class is or anything. Done right, these consequences will work. They will be really, really powerful and effective again. And we do that by creating this massive amount of leverage and making these really matter to every student in the class. Each of these, again, there's a lot to them that we'll cover in future videos. If you want to check them out, we have 800 articles on these topics and many more on the Smart Classroom Management website. So if you want, you can go there, use the search function, which works really, really well. You'll probably find dozens of articles on consistency, which is the first one. So in order for these rules to have meaning, you have to be absolutely consistent. So your observation and supervision of your students must be excellent. You must follow through every time. There's a way we want you to follow through that makes that even more effective, but your consistency is absolutely key, because if you're not, your students are going to see you as unfair. And if they see you as unfair, if they view you as someone who is unfair, these aren't going to work. They're not going to work at all. So you have to prove yourself by following through and being consistent, that you're someone that they can trust. Second thing is clarity. So clarity in teaching your rules and modeling your rules, so students know when they cross that line and they break a rule, they have no one to point the finger at but themselves. So there are no gray areas in your rules. Again, please check out that rules video that discusses that a little bit. We are going to have a video on gray areas in the future, but just know the students have to know specifically and exactly where your boundary lines are. What does and doesn't constitute breaking your rules. You need to know that really well, and the students do also. You need to know it really perfectly, and your students need to know that also. So clarity, relationships, your relationship with students. That means creating no animosity, no friction, no yelling, no lecturing, no admonishing, no glaring, nothing like that. We remove all friction between you and students. You must have a positive relationship with all of them. Preferably, we want them to like their teacher. That's a really big part of it. And the reason is we don't want them blaming you, the teacher. If the student is sitting in timeout, seething at you, they're not going to be reflecting on their misbehavior. So relationships are really, really important. We're going to go over how to build those relationships in a really simple, effortless way in a future video. And again, all these in future videos. Compelling lessons, you're teaching lessons. And we have a process for doing that at Smart Classroom Management that is proven effective for students, that they enjoy a certain type of lessons. So that's important. Your humor, their success. So we really believe strongly in guiding students from one success to the next success to the next success, which becomes really addictive for students. They love it. They really, really love it, and they want more of it and more of it. And the more that sort of perpetuates on itself along with everything else up here, the more powerful these basic consequences become for them. Purpose. So we give students purpose all day long. Also, another topic we'll discuss in the future, responsibility. We really heap it on our students. So we'll talk about independence and ensuring that students are focused on their responsibility while you're focused on your responsibility. In classrooms that are ineffective, they sort of cross and they mesh together. In the most effective classrooms, teachers are clear about what their job is, students are clear about what their job is. And so responsibility and then freedom within the boundaries you have. We believe strongly in students enjoying learning, and so we give freedom, we give choices and things like that. We want students to love coming to school, which brings us to the last one. All of these add up to their love of being in your classroom, and this is the ultimate reward for students, is that they look forward to coming to your class. And to put it simply, if they love coming there every day and they look forward to being there and they enjoy it because of all these things, and by the way, students behave predictably, they will enjoy it if you do all these things in a certain way. Students love being there predictably, and when they do, these consequences matter. And they matter so much that students will do everything to avoid them. And this equals outstanding, excellent classroom management, time on task, high academic achievement, and all those good things. Okay, if you have any questions or anything about this video that you want me to cover in the future, anything that was sort of confusing here, please let me know in the comment section and we'll cover those in the future. Okay? Hope you're having a great week. If you like this video, please like and thumbs up. And also remember to subscribe to our channel. Okay? See you next time.